Hello, everybody. Can everybody listen to me? Thank you so much for joining this afternoon, and we're ready to start our session. I know it's super loud, so we will try to speak as loud as we can to compete the other stage. And today's session consists of a wonderful panelists from industries that are trying to make an impact, create new opportunities, and a society where nobody is left behind through business, technology, and the new innovative solutions. So I'm very honored to be moderating this session. My name is Guillermo Georgina Bachelut. I'm a co-founder and the CEO of the Order Wealth Tech. We are a democratized, fractionalized investment platform for everybody. And our key thesis is also in the environment and societal startups for investment. So starting our wonderful panelists, I have Kai Stenchkamp from Truling Finance, and Ms. Matsui Kathy from Empower, and Taka Nakamura from Taliki. So all these panelists have been trailblazer in their own fashion, doing a wonderful new aspects, including in ESG space. So when it comes to ESG, people only presume that it's only for environment or maybe like certain social aspects. But all of the panelists, and including myself, believe and also think that there is much more depth into that, and it's something that should be tackled through different stages of business. Not only just, it's not an issue of just the big enterprises, it's not an issue of just the startups. And together, integratively, we have to work to tackle all these issues. And why ESG matters, why are we having this panel included in the IVS is I believe investors, in particular Gen Alpha or Gen Z, they really care about companies that do good in society. They're not evil. And they really take their things seriously. And we here today will discuss about what does it mean starting an investment portfolio or like doing a fintech company in that space. What motivated you and what is your vision, where it is going, and what is the current challenges and what do we see in the next few years come ahead. So that will be the introduction of it. And please introduce yourself very briefly and why you started your business or the respective organizations, what motivated you, what is your vision, what do you think the current scope of the ESG is currently within a few minutes, please. Thank you.
I'll start. My name is Kai Stenchkamp. I work at Truling Financial. We are a startup that provides bank accounts to people with cognitive disabilities, so Alzheimer's, autism, Down syndrome, schizophrenia, bipolar, people recovering from addiction. We've raised about $70 million of capital and have about 250,000 customers in the US, and starting to think about other societies that are confronting the aging problem.
Hi, I'm Kathy Matsui from Empower Partners. We are a fairly young venture capital fund that launched in 2021. We are Japan's first ESG integrated global VC fund. And the reason we started this, I founded it with my co-founders, Yumiko Murakami and Miwa Seki. The three of us had the same sort of vision because if you think about ESG integration, large companies in Japan are still kind of struggling or being challenged with how to establish good governance practices, how to integrate greater diversity in leadership. And I worked for 30 years in investment banking and working with large enterprises in Japan, and I found it frankly very frustrating. It's very hard to change the attitudes and behaviors of old, large, established companies. So we thought with our venture capital fund, could we help startups integrate these principles at a much earlier stage of their development so as to help them scale and accelerate their growth. So really happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Taka Nakamura, a founder of Taliki, which empowers social entrepreneurs who try to solve social issues by business. And we have 4 businesses, but I think I'm going to talk about investment business here. And who are familiar with impact investing concept? Okay, there are some, thank you. I think impact investing is a little bit different from ESG investment, but it's kind of similar activity. And impact investing is, it's about investing in business and business opportunities that seek value out of social or environmental outcome. So we basically measure and manage social outcomes that is generated from entrepreneurs. And we invest in really early stage, and we've invested in 16 companies. And one of them is tackling with an issue of disability, or one is about abuse or something like that. And yeah, so I'm so looking forward to talking about how to deal with difficult situation or difficult issues with investment or financial scheme. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What an array of awesome speakers. And Kathy and Taka, I have a question for you both, because since you both invest in startups, right, and early stage, and I understand that because I'm a startup founder, and then when it comes to, we try to be as green, or we try to be as, integrate ESG principles as much as we can, but sometimes it becomes a little bit costly for early startups, right? So for runway is a huge impact for a lot of startups, so they just go with the cheapest options, the current temporary solutions. And as we go, by the time we reach like Series A or B, C, we're already this kind of a Frankenstein's of monstrosity. And especially when you go and evaluate how we're doing when it comes to ESG reporting. So I believe like only big companies, they're like way too late to change their like business models, and it's too costly. That's why they start seeking out different solutions. Like one of the example is like carbon offset. And it should have fixed certain issues in the industry, but it backfired. So I really like the focus of you starting from the beginning, integrated, and each and every step as you go, you become more responsible when it comes to any ESG values. So that leads to my next question. What are your requirements when you make an investment, like seed investments, or then your portfolio companies that have been like doing really well? What do you seek as an investor to startups? Like, what does it take for them to get money from you?
So to clarify, we are not an early stage investor like Taka-san. We are a middle to later stage investor. So for our companies or the potential companies we look at, most of them have some kind of product market fit. Most of them have some traction in revenues. And so in that case, they're not sort of worried about survival, mostly. So they have a little bit of extra room to think about ESG considerations, number one. Number two, it is very obvious that startups are not perfect at ESG. Frankly, large companies are not perfect at ESG, right? So our expectation is not, when we do due diligence of companies, for Empower, we don't have like this checklist, like a report card. You have to get straight A's for us to invest. That's impossible. But what is very important for us is that the startup founder and the management team have a mindset that they care about ESG considerations. And that could be everything from, what their impact on the climate is. But I would say for the most part, in our case, we found a lot of startup founders care about the S of the ESG. Most importantly, why? Because their startup's future is going to be determined by what? Their people. How they're able to hire and retain the best quality talent. So for them, having in place, for example, personnel policies that are going to attract the best quality talent, including diversity and being an inclusive organization that welcomes diverse thinking. That's very, very important. Also, we ask questions like, have you had power harassment issues in the past? And a lot of companies have had power harassment and harassment cases. That's okay. What we want to understand, though, is do you have a policy on how to deal with those incidents? And if you don't, we want to help you, kind of create those policies. So to be clear, nobody is perfect from the beginning. We just want to help you. But the important thing is you, the startup, have to be committed to working with us on that ESG journey.
Okay, Taka?
I think almost same here, but in the early stage, they don't have anything like not only business model, but also human resource or of course money. They don't have anything. So the most important thing for us is intentionality of founders. So we don't assess from what they have now, but we strongly believe that what they want to do in the future or what they want to achieve as a social impact is it determines the strategy of how to grow their businesses or how to expand their businesses. So I think intentionality, having intentionality is the most important thing for startups in early stage. And after that, they have to have, it's not have to be perfect, but they have to have like a system to monitor how they generate impact in that strategy.
Okay, that's quite interesting because a lot of different kind of startups, you have to have a certain metrics to show the investors and boards to that we are growing and the measurement of the the productivity and the growth, and especially like the venture capital backed companies, you have to show certain growth but having intention is one thing, but the measurability of like when it comes to ESG, it's really hard to set certain standards, and how do you measure that? That will be one question for you two ladies, and maybe Kai can support as a successful founder who raised over $70 million. How did you convince the investors to invest in you? Did you have that vision, and what else did you have? Because you're sitting on the other end of the table, and maybe collectively you can point out the measurability of it. Impact, yes, like we all understand this is a good thing, but like, do we have certain standards, and like how do we measure it as we go, or just kind of a blur of it? And sure, like everybody wants to have a great environment, good society that's equal, diverse, right, and good governance companies, but how do we really enforce it, and as a startup to continue to grow and showcase in the world to become a good example? And would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were talking about runway earlier, right? And I think that it's for a company, there's a stage where your survival is unlikely, and then you get to a later stage where your survival is likely, where by default you will succeed. And I think during the survival unlikely stage, so much of impact is like, if this company succeeds, will that make society better? And then if so, like, work as hard as you can to survive, right? And so, I think about when we were first establishing a 401k, a retirement savings plan for our company. And, I was literally like, I asked our head of HR, are people making more than they need to? I've since come around. But so I think that there's that first, like, does this company deserve to exist? Will it have an impact? And then I think later on you sort of layer in and are you, like in Maslow's hierarchy, the things around like, are you using solar energy? And ultimately, we probably believe that those things actually make a company more resilient and stronger, right? And so a founder that comes to you and says, oh, we don't have time to think about diversity and hiring because we're just out there trying to win. It's like, no, you're going to lose. That's going to be a bad company. And so I think taking the advantages that are available through, sort of ESG thinking, but using that just to survive.
So you have to be really good at the long game, because those are the visions that sustainably going to take your company further. And again, any tech startup, any company, like you say, why do we exist, And here we're trying to solve some social environment or like different kind of issues here. And that growth is enabled by funds like yours and Taka's investments, right? And as you go investing, are there any pattern that you have recognized from your portfolio companies, and what you think currently is happening? What are the challenges that might be upcoming within the space? Could you elaborate on that, ladies?
So having intentionality or having intention is so important to make a strategy for growth. And the company we've invested in has a rehabilitation service for facilities of children with disabilities. And it looks like really small market, like for Japanese venture capital, like children with disability, it's so small and it's not profitable. So it looks like that. But we realize when we made impact model with the entrepreneur, they didn't not focus on only children with disability. They want to make people like they want to make people with disability or people who cannot move their body in a satisfied way. There are actually 2.4 billion people who have disability in the world. So 2.4 billion is so big for investors, and so for that entrepreneur, helping them is the ultimate goal. So the market is super big for investor, and helping to generate that impact as an investor means that helping them expanding their business and also raising funds from the investors. Yeah.
We also have a portfolio company. Some of you may know it. It's called Heraroboni. Heraroboni is a company that was started by two twin brothers whose older brother is autistic. And they grew up with their older brother wherever they went in Japan, always teased or like, oh, that guy's strange, or, they grew up with that. And they wanted to create a society where their older brother could be treated normally like anybody else. And so the Matsuda Kyodai, the twin brothers, created this company which basically takes artwork from disabled artists, and they have created a digital IP platform to sell the art in a digital form to enterprises. So JR East, Japan Airlines, Hyatt Hotels, Marui in terms of their EPOS card. And I think to your question, in the beginning, similar to what you said, because we're actually not an impact fund, we're an ESG integrated fund, but our investors are investing in us because they think we're going to produce a very competitive financial return, period. And so, of course, there's a question, but isn't that investment in Heraroboni more like charity and not going to have a return? But what we so believe in the commercial potential of this company that we invested in it, and it's basically revenues have doubled, and doubled. And it just opened an office in Paris because it won the Louis Vuitton Innovation Award last month in Paris, and they want to become the digital IP platform for artists with disabilities globally, not just here in Japan. So we see massive potential for this kind of company, but convincing the outside world that this is a big market does take some work.
I think there's one way to think about it might be that ESG is about reducing operational risk, right? Or, sort of like how you operate your business to make it resilient. And I think impact is about identifying overlooked opportunities. And I think as basically do-gooder investors, you sort of have both lenses, right? Like, is this an overlooked opportunity? Because if so, the startup will have less competition, a bigger market, a faster growth ultimately if it's solving a real problem. And then as the company scales, you're looking, is this going to be sustainable? Is this, does this have a robust supply chain? Are they able to attract talent? Are they, going to get in trouble with regulators?
Yeah, speaking of regulators, and all of you has been mentioning that sure, it's kind of a very different kind of scale of ventures. Like for companies, it's compared to like SaaS or like different kind of solutions. We have like much longer vision to play at, like step by step, engraving all these like standards and your visions together, like weaving together for like much bigger and longer vision going on. And many of it, like environmental, like climate, and then as well as the social issues, I believe it's dependent on a lot of regulatory frameworks, and especially to go globally. And you mentioned the IP platforms, and I know that there are a lot of like environmental companies trying to do it, but different jurisdictions have different ideas of like how it should be scaling and growing. And I believe you have faced that working with the major banks in the United States, being a financial company, dealing with SEC, and even though the intention is good, but like the current society is kind of designed and created for like not very ESG friendly current, right? So how do companies like big or small go around it? Like what do you think the regulatory factor plays into this space? And if so, what are your aspects or visions to think, what's going to happen next? I know that, we have Paris Agreement. I know that, United Nations and all the countries are trying to work together, but still we have all these different reporting, different standards, no uniform there. I know EU is taking lead and US is saying something, but nothing like integrated for companies to exchange values globally. So what would be your opinions on those?
I can start. I think that when we're talking about startups, there is no one-size-fits-all ESG framework for every company. That's impossible. It depends on the sector. It depends on the stage of the company. So what we try to do is we don't tell a startup, you need to work on ABC. We ask them, what do you think is the most important material factors in the ESG overall framework for your business to succeed? And pick those and work on those. And so that may differ, from company to company. And so I think because it's so confusing with all these regulations that change all the time, it's hard to keep up. And, this is for tiny startups, it's even harder to keep up than a large company, right? But I think being focused on what is most important for your business to do well. And to me, ESG is nothing really special. It's kind of common sense, right? These are things like to have a robust governance structure or to have a data security policy if you're a tech company. These are atarimae, these are joshiki, things that hopefully you're going to be thinking about early on as you're a startup so that you don't have to fix things when you become an adult or a bigger company. So to me, I think there's almost too much weight put on, these are so special requirements, so I've got to keep up with all this, regulatory change. But really, at the end of the day, it's what's going to keep your business, like you said, resilient and sustainable growth over time.
Do you want to chime in, Taka?
So as an investor, the market should be bigger, and bigger is better. But as an entrepreneur, you don't have to access to the biggest market. I think you, especially for entrepreneurs who want to solve social issues, the market is always small, and how to expand is really different from. It really depends on the market and the industry. So. If you want to expand your business, you have to. I think that what Kathy said is really right, but I think for impact startups, which accesses to certain social issues, for them it's so difficult to expand the market, especially for local startups or local entrepreneurs. So I think I recommend having vision is really important. And if it's for people living in the earth, you can expand your business in a different way, but researching about other countries' regulation or something like that. But if you just want to save people in front of you, you don't have to see bigger market. It's just for the indication for like investors, only investors. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think good companies expand their markets, and it is very rare to see a company that is able to attack an entire market all at once, right? And in fact, usually, as an angel investor myself, you see somebody that is claiming that they're going to be the best at this whole large problem rather than focusing on a part of it, and it's unlikely that they will get to market at all. So I almost think, like, to your point, like worrying about the market size versus like finding some people, building something that helps them, solving their problem, and then going and finding more people. I mean, very few startups get to $10 million a year of revenue, right? If you get there, you can probably find the next 10 million.
Okay. So I guess quality or quantity is like collective voice, it seems, when it comes to delivering your products and actually tackling a real problem rather than showing, the massive growth in the next 6 months. That is much bigger, more sustainable win for many of startups. So I believe maybe general audience might be interested in hearing. I believe many of them are also the startup founders or have an idea to start something, because that is like, entrepreneurial spirit, right? You find a problem and you feel like you can solve it in much clever, more innovative way through a technology. You think that, certain unique approach can actually help or make people's life better. And any advice that you can give very structurally, say, sure, we have a vision, okay, we have runway, like, all the things are engraving and integrating in it. And then you hit the wall, right? Like, am I really tackling the right problem? And when it comes to like VC investments or general like public to receive it, like ESG itself, like tend to get translated into more like NGOs or charities, right? Like they don't see the immediate growth, but they're like, oh, like, why are we doing this? Do we need to like deploy capital into it? And I want to ask more on the investors' perspectives. Like, I know your fund, you still have to go and talk with your LPs to convince them this is a good idea to invest into, like, ESG companies. This is not charity. They're going to have not only financially but also social impacts on top of it. So what is your journey as like, creating that fund, and then not only convincing your LPs, but also seeing that this is, definitely a good business that's going to survive, sustain, make a bring into the society. And as for you, Kai, as a founder and angel investor, you see, playing the double role, and how do you actually perceive it, like from the both? Yeah, anyone please tag in. Like, let's just organically have like whoever
sure.
wants to add on.
So one thing that I say, I look at a lot of people's first fundraising decks and help them iterate them. And often you'll see a slide that's like, women need more financial advice, or, describing this problem in very like, kind of heartfelt terms, right? Like, people with disabilities should, feel proud of their creations, children should receive adequate care, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing that I coach is like, imagine that all you want to do is make money and lead the investor to this problem, right? Like, hey, like I've found this like pot of gold, and it's in IP licensing of art of people with disabilities. Like, guys, this is going to be like, we're going to make so much money because nobody is licensing this stuff. It's like we're going to be like tripping over all this cash because it's so good, and it's almost like just applying that, like, frankly, like a reductionist, like kind of Neanderthal approach to it. But people really do see their business differently as a result of, and frankly, like, find a problem you can fall in love with, for sure, right? And be like, I'm gonna like deliver high quality financial advice to women. There's one of my portfolio companies is raising their follow-on round right now, and so that's why it's on my mind. And say, I want to make the world better in this way, but then really think, is there the business there? And be ready to tell the world, the best way you can make money is by helping me provide better financial advice to women, or whatever it might be.
Okay, So lure them with the money first, and then like the other parts are like kind of side effect almost at this point. Okay. Please.
Yeah, that's I think excellent advice, and we don't get enough of those pitches, to be honest. But to your question about how did we navigate this journey a little over 3.5 years ago to form our fund, when we were the very first in Japan to be an ESG integrated fund. To be honest, we first thought, there wouldn't be that many people who would give us any money because they thought, well, ESG and venture capital, it's like oil and water. It doesn't really mix. And how are you really going to make any money for us, right, was the kind of bottom line question. But the good news is that I think people understand now that ESG can actually enhance returns, risk mitigation, and it can also unlock new opportunities. So with that mindset, our LPs, which are very large Japanese financial institutions and corporations, they wanted to ride this journey with us because we were the first, and they wanted to see if our experiment could actually work. And so we're very lucky to have some terrific partners. But if you think about it, I used to work at Goldman Sachs in research, and in our research department, we had an ESG framework. But it is not true that if you just select or analyze companies with the highest ESG scores, that you're going to outperform the index. That is not true, right? But if you can combine financial metrics with ESG consideration, that is the magic sauce. That is going to enhance returns, and that's what we and others have proven. And if you think about it, it's like going to the doctor for a ningen doku, or physical exam. Like the doctor, if they just check you out, like just the exterior of you, your superficial you, they see, are you looking well? Is your skin color okay? Are you stressed out? But they're not really looking inside you. And I think what ESG is doing is helping to make transparent what's going on inside the company, right? What is the culture like? What is the what are the HR policies like? How are you governing the company? Is it a one-man or one-woman shop with no real teamwork? These are the sort of things we call non-financial indicators, which as an investor, I want to know. I don't want to just see the superficial exterior of a company. I want to really get under the skin and understand the culture and what's going on inside. It is not a perfect, process. We make mistakes. Everybody make mistakes. But at least we can try to get as much information as possible from the companies, like your word, intentionality. Are they intending to move in this direction and fix this problem? That's what we really want to help them with.
I think I can echo, because when you look at the top performing stocks in the stock market, and the companies that are doing against with the ESG values, who are already taking equity, diversity really well, ingrained within their culture, seems to be performing as well. So it's not necessarily just top high score companies do, but also just as they go engraving in each of their steps. Yeah. Haka? You don't have anything? Okay. So what do you think is going to be the future holds, What do you see in the next 5 years of the ESG investment environment? Where are we headed? What's going on?
I think every company has to be aware of social impact or ESG anyways, because, climate change and it's hot outside. It's still, July 3rd. It's too hot outside. So we are already affected by it, and we have to make a change to it as an consumer and as an entrepreneur and as an investor. So I think in 5 years or in 10 years, every enterprise and big companies, banks, investors have to have a social impact indicator when they assess companies having partnership with. But in that moment, I think there will be a challenge how to define social issue. So climate change will be the most serious thing in 10 years, but biodiversity is as well. But I think I think focusing on more difficult but minor issue is also important as a citizen. So I think for me now, for the future, we have to educate them. Like this problem is so important to survive or to keep our society good or better, make better.
I think that's an excellent point because major society or the investors, we need to continuously advocate our causes. Why we're doing this company, why it's good for the environment, why is it good for the society, and maybe more information, but more reliable and good information throughout the society. And then as well as the more inclusivity, everybody do their part, right? As a citizen, as a business owner, and as well as the regulator or, like global leaders. So I think, I also think when it comes to this ESG matters, finance, the money is one of the most powerful tools to redirect all these issues from our current, capital-driven society. And I think that's what all of you are doing, and I believe that's wonderful. So in the future, again, continuing adding on the questions, you have this powerful banks as your LPs, and you're investing into companies that's potentially going to drive the next 5, 10, or 15 years into this society. And what are some exciting parts that you're very much looking forward from your portfolio companies? Where do you think the next opportunity for the young entrepreneur should embark on in the next few years?
Yeah, I think that there are so many structural, headwinds and challenges facing not just the country of Japan, but where we come from, the country of the United States. Lots and lots of challenges, and so I think that challenges equals huge opportunities for entrepreneurs to fix, because it's about problem solving, right? It's about fixing these big challenges. So again, you could become the president of the United States or the prime minister of Japan and try to fix it. But I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, like was just discussed, finding an identifiable problem that you have a unique ability to solve, and finding a team that is equally passionate about solving that problem. I think that there's so many interesting opportunities out there. I was just going to say, though, to your question prior, about the next 10 or 5 or 10 years. I'm surprised you didn't ask about the backlash against ESG, because particularly in the United States and even parts of Europe where ESG kind of began, there's definitely a backlash. And I thought that backlash is rooted in many things, but one of the issues of the ESG, gyaku or backlash, is related to greenwashing, right? Because it became such a hayari kotoba, very popular term. So if you just put the letters ESG on the financial product and tried to sell it, everybody'd say, "Oh yes, that sounds so good. I want that."
The equivalent of AI,
right?
yeah.
But when you take a look carefully inside the contents of these ESG products, you didn't really find sustainability. You found something that's different. And so to me and to us at Empower, we actually see this backlash as a healthy development for the industry. Why? Because it's unveiling those nanchara ESG or kind of fake ESG players, which are just trying to take advantage of this wave, but not really executing or implementing ESG in the way that it should be implemented. So for us, we spend a lot of time, a lot of effort with our portfolio companies to help them in their ESG journeys. But there are other investors who call themselves ESG investors, but they don't do that. So we think we're entering a period in the next few years, we're going to separate out the real ESG, sort of investors and those that are just pretending to be so. So, make a comment from you're sitting in the United States.
I mean,
yeah, where everything is great. I think the backlash. My hope is that I think ESG has become like sort of an accepted part of capitalism, in the sense that when you do risky stuff, you should reduce that risk and make your business less volatile. That's sort of like basic capitalism. But I think some of the social stuff actually, people have different visions of society, right? And I think some of that backlash is about the sort of one-size-fits-all financial product. It's like, oh, and I think it also came out of it going like mainstream, right? And so somebody says, oh, we applied an ESG screen to the S&P 500. We're investing in 400 of those companies. You know, ExxonMobil is now ESG because they, have a diverse board of directors. You know, you're like, okay, that's not my vision for society, right? And I think actually having a plurality of ways to invest. I think also as private markets become more predominant relative to public markets, and as folks like you are democratizing access to alternatives with crowdfunding, maybe with crypto, God knows, having citizens have more ways to participate in the market, I think those two will be interesting together, right? That there are ESG lenses that reflect, maybe somebody's like, I would think the world would be best if everybody had guns, right? There could be like a pro-gun ESG fund. That's going to happen in America, I guarantee it. We're crazy. And, similarly for myself, maybe less so, right? An anti-violence ESG or whatever.
Okay, wonderful. So I believe, hopefully, that we touched upon very interesting aspects of just surrounding, the very surface level stuff, in general, what do investors look into it? Where might the opportunity be? Why there could be certain challenges, like navigating through the space, and from the investor perspective, founder perspective. And it seems like it's a quite exciting scope and a very interesting industry to be in. And I personally believe, echoing all our speakers, that it is a must-have for any size of companies to consider about your environment, your society, what are you existing for? For any company to exist in the world, you have to have a meaning, you have to have a purpose, and does those purpose and vision integrate the ESG principles, it's going to be a big qualification for your investors, your clients and users in the future, it appears. So to wrap up, we have about 10 minutes left, and I'd like to leave the last remarks and things that you want to elaborate or touch upon for our speakers each. Please.
Sure. So, an interesting thing for me, as somebody who is now an active angel investor, as well as at the office managing large amounts of money on behalf of people with disabilities, right? So investing my personal money typically in extremely early stage, ultra high risk startups, frankly, it's not fun unless there's risk. I would much rather invest in a company that's not yet profitable because they need the money. And then meanwhile, at the office, I manage, $1.5 billion of retirement savings for people with disabilities and the vulnerable aging. And it's always been interesting to me that the way I invest my own money is the literal opposite of how I invest other people's money at the office. And I have tried to make the case, and it's just, we're not there yet. I invest a lot in companies that are, for me, it was mostly like women, Black, and immigrant founders historically. And I've just started making investments in founders with cognitive disability, right? So looking for people with autism who are starting companies, looking for recovering addicts starting companies. And that's just so fun for me to be building those companies and helping those entrepreneurs. And it's frustrating to me that the 20,000 people whose money I manage don't have that same sense of satisfaction that I do in helping build these companies. And I think that's what, I'm bringing up what you're doing again, right? Democratizing that sense of building something together is just really neat. And I'd love to see where we're all feeling like we're participants in building the economy.
Right, in the society, big or small, whether you're wealthy or not, we are still part of the society, and we equally should have an opportunity to participate solving certain problems together. Yeah. Please, Kathy.
I'm just going to key off of Kai's comment. So, as many of you know, in Japan, of all venture capital funding, only 2% 2 goes to female founders. What percentage of the society is women? I'm guessing half, right? But only 2%. And I think in the United States, the statistic is similar. Also the same in America. So why is that, you may ask, right? And again, I go back to your comments earlier about there's a perception that women founders, their businesses are tiny. They're more about social, non-profitable activities. So this perception or this myth, I think is totally false. And maybe because our fund is led by 3 women who are the 3 GPs,
That's awesome.
we tend to attract a lot of female and frankly non-Japanese founders. And it's fascinating. They're not just doing small charity type businesses. Some of them have very deep tech related businesses or life science companies, and they're extraordinary. Yet they have the very difficult time pitching to VC funds, which are mainly male, right? And so to me, the opportunity, when you talk about the title of our session here, I mean, we focused on ESG, but it's, people who are a society that no one's left behind. Well, what about half the society, right? What about the women who really want to be entrepreneurial, who really have fantastic ideas, but they're just not given a chance. And so I love your idea of investing in minority founders, persons with disabilities. I think this is an amazing space with a massive potential that is just beginning to be tapped. And we've actually done studies at Empower. You can look at our website that shows that in Japan, if you divide IPOs from 20 to 23, female versus male founders, surprisingly, the female-founded companies' average IPO size is 1.5 times larger than male peers. Now, this is relative to the amount of capital they raised, and this is a small sample size, as you can imagine, female-founded companies that go public. But it is a statistic. It is a data point, and I think the more that we can all carry out this have this conversation around this is not, women don't make money or there are not many women founders to begin with. Let's stop that. The reality is very different, but these women need a chance. So just want to put in a plug. And 40% of Empower's portfolio are female and minority founders. We're very proud of that.
That's really amazing and also very comforting and empowering to hear that, coming from a VC, And Taka, please.
Right. I felt empowered by her comment as a female founder. And I think we share the similar story that investing in minority makes bigger chance for society and the market itself. And I think investing is voting for me. I think this problem should be solved by society or by business or by the market. So most social issues are kind of out of the market. And every business player, maybe here, every business player thinks the social issue should be solved by non-profit organization or the government. But by investing in them, I want to show them. I want to show to the market this is what we should do now in the business player as a business player. So I think involving many people is crucial to expand this concept. And I think that everyone here is going to be our kind of in the same boat. So I think telling your story about society and telling your plans to others, especially to business players, I want to solve this problem through business. And even if it looks small in the market, it could be life changer for someone in this world. So I want to help those kind of entrepreneurs. Yeah.
That's amazing. Really heartwarming to hear that as well. And I think that wraps up our session today. And I know Kathy has another session to run off too. And I would like to give a big round of applause for our speakers who have shared their vision and their experience. Yep, thank you so much. Any last remarks before we end? Okay, so this concludes our session. So thank you so much. And our speakers, except Kathy, will be sticking around. And if you are an entrepreneur thinking to get their advice or like fundraise, Kai and Taka will be around. And come say hi, take a pictures and all that. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.